slick black hairstyling,
You're looking
black
nice
watch
tonight.
Monica. He looked
I'm
like he
liking the
showered.
look.
He looked like he showered, he shaved up, cleaned up a little bit.
I was expecting a mask.
I was expecting several masks.
Hold on.
Maybe he has time. Next person coming up is a spoken word artist whose content is intended to provoke thought and positive impact. He has been a member of Toastmasters, an international public speaking organization, for over a decade. He is a youth mentor and has conducted several workshops and presentations about self-expression and effective communication. He also has volunteered hundreds of hours at Covenant House, helping combat youth homelessness. Ladies and gentlemen, the man himself, clean shaven, fresh from his tour in the shower, the one and only Atlas.
Okay, that must have been different bits and pieces. I sent her a Word doc with all the different intros I've used, and I think she just put everything together. All right, so to start off, check the chat. I am not too good at like PowerPoint presentations, and I guess I don't have to be because I've already made a lot of the stuff available online. So if you guys go to this link, not right now, but later on for the sake of time, you will be able to see photos, videos, referencing everything that I'm sharing with you tonight. And I thought I would do something rather unconventional, rather than just share several pieces. I wanted to do something I've actually not done in the online landscape and only a few times ever in person. I just kind of wanted to answer some questions that people have posed that I've never taken the time to answer. So first and foremost, Atlas, like people are like, oh, is Atlas your real name? I mean, yes and no. It's a name I've earned. It's not a name I was born with. And the reason why everybody started calling me Atlas, a friend of mine, Alex, I was having lunch with him and we were at Panera Bread, and I'm very empathic, not like rub stones and sell seminars in India kind of empathic, like genuinely, inadvertently would prefer oftentimes not to be, but I feel if people are suffering nearby, I can feel and I can tell. So I was having lunch with my friend, and he knew me. We had been spending time several months together, and he has seen several instances of it affecting me. And so I just saw a little boy being completely ignored by his dad, stereotypical. He's playing on some video game console. His dad goes from one business call to the other, and I could just feel how ignored and neglected he felt. My friend Alex noticed, and he said, you know, you keep taking the weight of the world, you keep feeling for other people, you know, you can't be Atlas all the time. Ironically, within the same week, I was with my friend Christy and I was giving her some advice. And what she said, what I like about you is that you don't tell me what to do or where to go. You just show me what options I have, like a map, like an atlas. So I didn't give myself the nickname, and this is 2008, 2009 we're talking about. And they were both event promoters, and they saw an opportunity. So they started referring to me as an artist, Atlas, and they did that so that they could sort of strategically be able to put my name first, because they would just go alphabetically. And with no second word to go with it, I was always the top name on a lot of the flyers and a lot of the posters that they would promote. And since that took up a vast majority of all of my free time, people met me as Atlas. And before we knew it, it circled back to my prior friends and my family, and they changed their name in the phone that they had for me to Atlas. So that's where that comes from. If you guys have heard some or a lot of my content, I keep like a spreadsheet. These online mics, just online mics alone, I've done 248. In-person events, I've done well over 1,000. I never really talk about me. None of my pieces ever really talk about me. And a lot of them are very intense, and they're sort of intense on purpose. I even socially, there's two friends right nearby where you can't see. I don't do really well with small talk, and I'm sort of an intense person by nature. I don't watch enough movies or TV shows or honestly read enough books to talk about anything that's more informational than just sort of emotional. Um, and they probably don't even know, but like all this started, I started writing because it was a pretty traumatic event. Maybe not to some of you, but definitely to me. And one that sort of altered my perspective on the world. I was meeting up with a friend for lunch, and there was a large park right nearby her job. She was running late, and I was just sitting at a park, and I was listening to music on my phone, sitting on one of the vacant swings, just sitting there. And this other kid, I was talking to him about the music I listened to. Um, I have pretty good taste in music, and my friends ask me for playlists all the time. But anyway, he must have been maybe 11, 12 years old, and we were just talking about music. Anyway, he gets off the swing, walks away. And I would say within about 8, maybe 10 minutes, two police officers are sitting outside of the fence from this park, a public park, and they wave to me and call for me to go over there. They asked me, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm meeting with a friend." They said, "Well, where's your friend?" I'm like, "She's not here. She's running late. We're just going to have lunch. Sit down." They asked me again, why was I there? Then they asked me if I had a kid with me. And I said, no, it was just me. Now, like I said, that sounds like a pretty simple moment, just one parent being cautious. But what really hit me was that every one of those parents had no idea what was going on. So the fear of one person was able to contagiously spread to a whole bunch of other people who didn't have any issue at all with a grown man sitting in a highly visible public space, just having a very simple conversation with a child. That shocked me. Up until that point, I had given up writing in junior high. I didn't write poetry. I was doing theater. I was doing comedy. I was doing improv. I didn't write. But from that point on, it seemed like that's all I could do. Write and share, write and share. And I had the advantage because I was already comfortable being in front of an audience because I had already paid for college with theater. And like I said, it might have seemed like an innocent moment, but I think that's exactly how these things happen. It starts off small and it creates an echo that spreads out, that spreads out.
I'm not sure.
So as far as the style of my writing, if you guys have heard me speak, and I'll share a few things throughout this, the style of my writing, it's thematic. So I have a piece like Welcome to America, and it talks about all the different freedoms and rights that we do have that we sort of take for granted. I have a piece called A World, and it talks about what the world would be like if we were still able to view it with the same perspective, with the same naivety that we did as children. But the way that I write for mics like this and for open mics because I don't know if people will leave and go to the bathroom. I don't know if they're honestly there just to see the person who was before me or the person after me. So my line of thinking is every few sentences should have its own sort of statement. It should have relevance to a good amount of the audience so that no matter how much of this food you eat, some part of it still has sustenance and is still nourishing. So I use very simple wording because there are some beautiful poets that I've seen throughout all the mics, whether online or physical. Some of them, though, they have these beautiful quadrisyllabic, high SAT scoring words, but I come away honestly being like, that was beautiful, but I have no idea what they just said. And then with some of the slam poets, they speak so fast. It's almost like you're more impressed by the pace of their piece than by the content of it because it's hard to grasp on a few words. So I speak slowly and I use simple wording, not in any way because I insult the intelligence of the people listening or the people watching, but because I want everyone to feel like there's an opportunity to take something away. So some of the simple quotes I've written. We are only as miserable as we can afford to be. The only thing more dangerous than someone who threatens your life is someone who threatens your way of life. Are you using technology, or is technology using you? You don't understand this endless pursuit of renewable energy. We all know the human spirit is the greatest source of renewable energy. I came into the world with nothing. I still have most of it left. You are not the accumulation of your yesterdays. You're the living potential of your tomorrows. Don't let today become the yesterday that you promised to change tomorrow. So these are just tiny lines that are from longer pieces, anywhere from 3.5 to 7 to one of the longer ones is like 16, 17. So yeah, the whole thing started off with open mics. And then I started wearing masks. I was wearing masks because people had already known me from doing comedy, from doing improv. And I was traveling to some of the same venues. So people already have preconceived notions. They would see my face and be like, okay, this guy's gonna make me laugh. So more so out of consideration for them, I started wearing a mask. I started having a little bit of a deeper tone. And before I knew it, people were wondering where I was because this other guy, Atlas, was there all the time. And like I said, all this stuff is on the links. All the masks are there. But I wanted to start wearing masks because I think that I wanted to play into the idea that we judge people by their appearance. So every mask I made and wore was directly connected to the speech that I was going to give. So the speech A World, it was made out of puzzle pieces from different children's puzzles. And the one Welcome to America was made from copies of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, with a focus on just the different amendments. And it goes on and on. There's 20, 30 masks with a piece to go with each one of them. And so I would travel around to these open mics, and before long, people wanted a copy. Hey, whatever you wrote, can I have a copy of that? I would love to give it to my friend, my mom, whatever. So I would be walking around with probably like $12 worth of photocopies pretty much every night. So I didn't really want any online presence because I didn't want people to take what was going on for granted. The whole idea, oh, I'll just tune out, I'll check it out later. I made a bet with my friends. So my big thing is within or without. I have a big tattoo on my back. It says go within or go without. So the deal was if within or without was available, I would get a website. And sure as shit, unfortunately, it was. So I started throwing all my writing on there. And through that, a few people wanted to reach out. And then I started putting ads on Craigslist because I wanted to sort of create like this battalion of people who were just trying to do positive things. And I bought a bunch of antique typewriters and I brought them out to my Florida people. I brought them out to Lincoln Road. So I had over at Miami Beach, I had over at South Beach, I had it at North Miami Beach, I had it along Hollywood Beach, and I had it over in Young Circle in Hollywood. And I would just set up all these antique typewriters that I lucked out and got at yard sales because the idea was to get people involved, to see something like that and to feel compelled to write. I didn't want people to view, I wanted people to do. So on my birthday, I decided I was going to spend $300 in some way. I was going to use $300 to try not necessarily get more traffic to the site, but just to reach more people. And I decided the smartest thing for me to do was just to get $300. So I had some stamps made that said invest in yourself. And then I put withinorwithout.com. And I actually gave $150 to 2 different homeless individuals that I saw there on 34th and Biscayne, right by the New Times magazine. And I had paid them both and I'd fed them both. But the idea was they would go up to people at every red light, and instead of asking for $1, they would plead with people to roll down their window and they would give them $1. These were brand new dollars, 300 single dollars. It's also on the website. You can see all that. And I ended up reaching over 10,000 people with $300, and I didn't waste any money. And I got to do something, because the whole idea is like the whole thing with the park, right? Like that was really traumatizing for me because I didn't do anything wrong. So I thought the only way to be able to combat something that shocking is to do something equally shocking, like having homeless people give away money. And then I watched a lot of my stores, a lot of my favorite stores going away. Started off with Discovery Zone. I went there as a kid, then Hollywood Video, which was one of my first jobs. And more places started to close. And every time I would see the going out of business sign, I was immediately bombarded with memories of who I met, what adventures I had, the Walden books, the different places I had gone, places I would go to with my friends after school. I would watch more and more of those go away. So I decided I would start spreading messages on all these windows of all these closed businesses using wet chalk. So that way if the cops came by, I wasn't defacing it because I could just as easily wipe it off. And in most of the places here in Louisiana, Florida, most of the places it rains so much, it wasn't gonna last that long anyway. So I started to write these messages. I started to write, how much more are you willing to lose in order to save what little we have? I would write, you could have met your new best friend here. I wrote, your dollar has more impact than your vote because you spend every day. I wrote, your choices today affect our options tomorrow. We shop online for hours, but we won't stand in line for a few minutes. We all support the idea of change as long as it doesn't involve any of ours. And I would also write this piece called First They Came. You know, first they came for the bookstores, but I did not speak out because I was not much of a reader. Then they came for the toy stores and I did not speak out because I had already allowed my inner child to die. Then they came for the art and hobby stores and I did not speak out because I had already given up on all of my creative endeavors. Then they came for the music and movie stores and I did not speak out because I was downloading the content for free. Then they came for the brick and mortar stores and I did not speak out because I was waiting patiently for my online order to be shipped to my door. And then they came for me. They came for my job, my business, my livelihood, my means of purchasing the very things that gave them this power. They came for me. And there was no one left to speak for me. And there was no way for me to share my voice because by that time, they controlled all communication. I wrote that message along Pier 1 Imports, along several home decor stores, basically anywhere it pertained to. And when I wasn't writing on windows, I was writing on sidewalks because I was starting to wonder if people looked so down, both physically and sort of like metaphorically, if they looked so down because of what they saw on their cell phones or because they were just looking at them. So I figured I'll reach them along the ground and I started writing messages along the sidewalk, like an 8-year-old, except not just scribbling my name. And I would write, where were you standing the last time you stood for anything? Do you know what you like? Or do you only like what you know? There's always tomorrow until there isn't. And I would write, if no one does what's right, there won't be anything left. Then COVID came. And I'm not much for social media. I don't have a Twitter or a handle or anything like that, but I have a front porch. So I had 3 large whiteboards that I would call porch Twitter, because people were walking with their dogs and their strollers, and I wanted to reach out to them. And I started putting these very large figures, the Megazord from the Power Rangers, a Batman, a Darth Vader, a Stormtrooper, and a giant Ninja Turtle, just to show I was nostalgic and came in peace. Basically, something for their kids to look at, and hopefully the kids would keep their parents long enough to look at what I had written. I even gave COVID its own Instagram, the whole idea of going viral. So who better than a virus to go viral? So in COVID's Instagram messages, I would write, "Hey, atheists, how's that whole not believing in the existence of a powerful, omnipresent force that you can't see or touch working for you?" I would write, "As it turns out, the number one fear isn't public speaking. Remember when you said you'd get to all that important stuff later? Well, it's later." I would write, "The news keeps giving the wrong information. The mortality rate isn't 4% or 5%, it's 100%. 100% are mortal. You should be quitting smoking and exercising to lose weight, but instead you're chain smoking and stress eating. Makes total sense." And finally, one of the Instagram quotes for COVID was, "Nothing like being stuck in your house full of stuff to remind you how empty it all feels." So as things started to open, I wanted to use the devices that I had. I wanted to use technology as a weapon against technology. So I started a project called Luminary Graffiti, where I would put quotes. I would go out at night and put my projector up, high-res projector, and put quotes. And the idea was to be able to shed light even in the darkest of alleys, even in the latest of night, in the darkest of times. And I'm finishing, and here's what I put here. In the Luminary Graffiti project, I put, "Being broke doesn't mean being broken. You are everything you never said you couldn't be. Everyone you know now is someone you didn't know then." Because I don't get this whole idea of strangers, because we go to restaurants and we go to restaurants based on what strangers think. We watch our movies based on what strangers think. We buy things based on how many reviews it has and how many strangers have purchased it. So I don't really get the whole concept of strangers, because pretty much everything we watch, eat, go, and buy is being highly influenced by what we consider strangers. So anyway, last 2 things is, if you cannot find a source of inspiration, become one. And I wrote, "Never dim your light for fear of casting shadows." With each one of these categories, obviously I wrote more in sidewalk chalk, I wrote more in sidewalk paint. I had a lot more quotes along with the projectors. But the idea was that with whatever extra time, energy, or resources I have, I'm just trying to reach out, to find friends, to find allies, not looking to acquire followers, just allies. So that maybe the next time someone sits at a park and just innocently says hello to an 11-year-old kid, maybe we don't live in a world where people feel like they have to call the fucking cops on him for doing it. I've been Atlas. Thank you.
Guys, you can unmute and show some love.
Brilliant, Atlas. Just brilliant.
Amazing.
Hello. That was beautiful. Great job.
Alice, I think Jennifer had requested that you repeat what you said earlier about threatening someone's life versus threatening someone's way of life.
Yes.
She wants to make sure.
Yes. The only thing we see more dangerous than someone who threatens our life is someone who threatens our way of life.
Very nice.
Anthony.
And everything I've shared is all available on the link tree. Not that any of you don't believe I did all these things, but there's photos, videos, newspaper articles, news coverage, all that stuff. And thank you. This is my first feature. So thank you, Dumping Grounds. Thank you for hosting. Thank you for being so patient with me. Sorry about what happened last month. I was attending a funeral and a memorial. And I'm just really grateful that all of you gave me your time and attention in a world that is constantly competing for both. Thank you.
Well, I didn't know this was your first feature. Awesome. I'm glad it was
Yeah.
here.
249 online mics now, and this is the first time I've ever featured.
Wow.
Did you not hear him the first 17 times he said it to you?
I guess not. I thought he was like, no, I thought Alice, like, because I've seen some of his stuff. So I just figured he would have been featured by now.
In the
No,
online
he had
community, no,
mentioned it.
this is the first one.
Yeah, he mentioned he has never featured, that he usually comes to events in a mask, pulls
he-
up in a mask, leaves in a mask, full
Good.
full character the whole time.
But you featured live many times.
Yeah, for my Florida people, you guys know Art Basel, right? Super elite thing during Winter Music Conference. Yeah, I've had showings over in Wynwood, in Bird Road Arts District, at Art Serve in Fort Lauderdale. Yeah, I mean, I've had like art gallery showings.
What kind
and
of
stuff like that.
showings did you have?
Of my masks and my writing and the mixed media stuff.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton. I mean, there's a ton of just like what I call visual provocations. Yeah, if you follow any one of the things on the link tree, you'll see all that stuff there. And yeah, and then I did this really cool thing because I would access the sound system. So I would go in, I'd walk in wearing a hoodie, like draped over, and I had all my masks displayed, usually on windows, like suction cut hooks. So people would see it from one side, and then it looked like from the opposite side of the window, like it would be, because I would write my speeches inside the masks to get people to look. And then the other person, it looked like that person was wearing the mask. Anyway, a lot of thought went into it. And then I would access the sound system. So I would go in, I'd grab one of the mics, one of the masks right off the display, put it on, and then I'd go into the speech with a mic I had queued up. I'd give the speech, and then when I was done, I would just put the mask right where I found it and just walk out of the art gallery. And I would do that once every 30 minutes.
Okay, this was different. This was definitely different, not what I expected. I guess